So here on the screen are a couple comments from a video that I've been having a lot of conversation with people concerning this idea that we have to go back to the law of Moses, the Ten Commandments, where notice he says, Paul kept the law after Christ. But then here he quotes Romans 7:25. And I know where he was going with this. So this is what I want to talk about in this video. Here when Paul says that in the thinking I slaved the law of God, he's not talking about the law of Moses. Paul's use of the law of God here is the same as 1 Corinthians 9:21. Law of God in the law of Christ. So notice back here, when Paul said, to the Jews, I became as a Jew. Well, this conjunction as is being used in the adverbial form, modifying the word became as, because he's comparing something to something else. As a Jew. Paul was already a Jew. He exceeded in Judaism. He was a Benjamite under the law of Moses. But notice now here he's saying, I became as a Jew, because he's no longer deeming his relationship to be a Jew under the law of Moses. And then he even says here, to those under the law of Moses as under the law, because he's no longer deeming himself under the law of Moses, where then he says, not myself being under the law of Moses. But then again, here he says, not being without law of God in the law of Christ, which is being contrasted to the law of Moses. It's two different laws. If the law of Moses was the same as the law of God in the law of Christ, Paul would not have said in Acts 13:38, for you are not able to be justified in the law of Moses. Because of out of the works of the law of Moses, we could just add of Moses, every flesh will not be justified, Romans 3:20. For we reckon the human to be justified in faith without works of the law of Moses, Romans 3:28. Galatians 2:16, but perceiving that the human is not justified out of works of the law of Moses, if not through the faithing of Christ Jesus. There's a contrast. Because the law was not out of faith. Galatians 3:12. The context of Romans 7:25 and the law of God is 1 Timothy 1:4. According to the law of God which is in faith, which is not referring to the law of Moses. Where notice this commenter, Mitch, said to me, you did not understand Paul's writings, which is a false accusation. I understand Paul's writings perfectly well. So you notice how these who uphold the Ten Commandments break number 9 constantly. They love to make these kind of comments that you do not understand. So be careful. This should be a lesson to all of us, according to faith, to not also make these kinds of statements to people. Just speak the facts to them and then pray that they'll come into the understanding themselves, because they're not understanding. They accuse you of not understanding, which is bearing false witness against you because they know nothing about you.